Hello, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if this is your first time popping in. Today I am going to be sharing with you the final update on the Unicorn's Journey Tarot. I cannot believe we have gotten to this place. I'm ready to reveal all of the cards. We're going to be focusing today on the Earth suit, so we're going to do a quick walkthrough of the cards leading up to that point. If you want to hear me go into more details on the earlier suits, the majors, the fire suit, the water suit, and the air suit, check out the rest of the Unicorn's Journey Tarot playlist, which I will have linked for you down below. But without further ado, we're going to go through the cards and talk a little bit about Mystic's story. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, the Unicorn's Journey Tarot deck is the tarot deck that I created. I'm so excited. The Kickstarter is going to be launching Saturday, April 20th, so mark your calendars. It is already available for you to go on to Kickstarter and click the Notify on Launch button. I'm going to be having a live launch party here on the channel, so if you want to tune in to my channel on Saturday, April 20th, I will be hosting a live launch party and officially launching the deck live, so I'm very, very excited about that. But this will be the official final update on all of the cards, so without further ado, let's get into it. So we begin again at the Fool, and here Mystic finds themselves at the forest clearing and has no idea who they are, what they are, where they belong, or anything about themselves. And so the Fool, Mystic, heads out on a journey of self-discovery. In the Magician card, Mystic is fast asleep, and as Mystic is sleeping, this special star sort of shines a light down on Mystic and illuminates Mystic's potential. We see a ghostly sort of horn appearing here on Mystic's brow as they sleep. And there's 4 elemental symbols here, as well as a lemniscate, and the lilies and roses we're often familiar with in the Magician card. In the High Priestess, we see Mystic's third eye space sort of awakening with this little crescent moon glow as Mystic walks beneath some trees, one cast in shadow bearing pomegranates and the other in light beneath the crescent moon. So this is Mystic's intuition awakening. In the Empress card, Mystic takes a little breather and seeks some comfort and some stability and maybe a little bit of mothering. And so here in the Empress, we see a mother doe offering Mystic some food to eat, and Mystic is able to sort of rest easy for a moment. In the Emperor card, we see the Emperor stag here and some Western red cedar trees, which I am very fond of. They remind me of where I grew up. And Mystic here got a little too close to the cliff edge, and the Emperor was like, nope, that's not safe. You can't go that far. We have the ram here that has been engraved into the stone as a reminder of the traditional symbology of the Emperor. The Hierophant really takes a different approach. Instead of an external source like a person or another character that Mystic finds that sort of tells them about tradition or teaches them, instead Mystic encounters, I guess you could say, signs of what came before. Some engravings on these cave walls, some paintings that give Mystic the impression that maybe they are one of these creatures meant to be ridden by humans. And we have the crossed keys of the Hierophant on the cave wall. But the idea here is that we've encountered information, we've encountered knowledge from somebody that came before. And sometimes we make assumptions about what that all means, and this kind of happens to Mystic in the story. Instead of the Lover's card, we have the Choice, and here Mystic reaches a crossroad in their path, and they have 2 options in front of them. They can go to the left where things are a little more mysterious. There's a light glowing at the end, a hint of who they are meant to be. But to the right is a farm, and there's a little girl sitting on the fence there. And that is a little bit more familiar to Mystic after having seen those drawings on the cave wall. So that's where Mystic heads. And so Mystic spends time at the farm with Carolyn, who becomes a best friend. And together the 2 of them work on things together. They play together. They also train together. And here they're training to compete in a fair. They're jumping hay bales in preparation for the contest. So they're working together in the chariot. There's this driven energy as they sort of focus their purpose and align their purpose to a shared goal. In the Strength card, Mystic learns to face their fear of storms. We have the lemniscate formed by the lightning above them. And Carolyn is there to offer support and to soothe, but not to necessarily help Mystic avoid what is frightening, but rather to face it and learn to calm in the face of the storm. And that's the Strength card. In the Hermit card, Mystic spends time in self-reflection. I really like that Mystic star is peeking in on them from the window, and a little barn cat is there curled up in the corner. There's the idea that even when we're spending intentional time alone, we're never really all alone. we have support and guidance even then. In the Wheel of Fortune, Mystic experiences change that's outside of their control. Carolyn has to go back to school. There's Carolyn's little backpack there with the Wheel of Fortune symbol on it, and the school bus has arrived. Even when the change is difficult, there's still often a bit of positive to be found, and here Mystic's friend Carolyn offers Mystic one of their favorite treats, a fresh apple for nibbling. In the Justice card, Mystic learns about, taking accountability and consequences. We have the little scales here on the bucket. But what's happened is Mystic had a little fun rolling in the mud and now has to face Carolyn's displeasure with having to clean all the mud off of Mystic. So it's just a sort of cause and effect card, actions and consequences. In the Hanged One, Mystic longs to go play outside. We have a little possum hanging here, a little hint to the upside down perspective of the Hanged One. But there's also a different hint at perspective here. As Carolyn studies, we can see if we look closely that Carolyn is studying mythology and unicorns, as a matter of fact. So there's insights to be gained there if Mystic and Carolyn pay attention. In the Death card, we experience loss, and here Mystic's friend Carolyn has all grown up and is heading away from the farm, so the truck is all packed up. We have a little butterfly here, as well as the white rose from the Death card that we are used to seeing here embroidered on Carolyn's little messenger bag. Mystic's trying to readjust to life on the farm, but this time without Carolyn, and is just taking a little moment here to find peace and balance. If you look here in the stones, there's a little yin-yang symbol there on the stone behind Mystic. Little symbol of balance and moderation. In this depiction of the devil, Mystic walks the same circle over and over again. Mystic's been hitched to a hitching post here, but very, very loosely, just one toss of Mystic's head, and they could be loose of the hitching post, and the fence is broken in the background, and we see the path, Mystic's path, beckoning them back there. The tower. The storms that Mystic learned to face don't scare Mystic anymore, but this one wreaked a lot of havoc and has really taken the barn down. Other animals are panicking in the background, but Mystic is sure-footed as they head back to the forest path they probably were meant to be on all along. In the Star card, Mystic finds their way again, and in the reflection of the pond, we can see Mystic's horn. And we know that Mystic's getting closer to uncovering the truth of who they are, who they're meant to be, and their destiny. As they look up directly, finally, at the star that's been guiding them all along. In the Moon card, things are a little bit unsure. There's that doubt that we experience when things get a little hazy, when it seems like instead of just friendly trees we're walking beside, everything is wild and grasping, and it's uncomfortable. But we have here a little wolf and a fox that are sharing in the discomfort or accompanying Mystic through this forest path. In the Sun card, Mystic meets somebody that finally looks a little bit like them. But this creature does have a horn. This is a unicorn that Mystic meets in this field in the woods. And so, inspired by the freedom of this creature, Mystic chews free of their harness and leaves it on the ground beside them and frolics and plays. So discovers sort of that ability to disrobe, to have freedom to really just embrace being comfortable in their own skin, maybe for the first time ever. In Judgment, Mystic finally sees what was waiting for them at the end of the path they could have chosen back in the Choice card, traditionally known as the Lovers. And here in Judgment, Mystic steps through that portal, beckoned forward by this guardian unicorn who calls Mystic through. Mystic steps through, and as they do, their horn appears on their head. And in the World card, Mystic finds themselves in a magical land, the portal behind them closing as their magic awakens, and a star, just like the one that's been guiding them all along, bursts from the tip of their horn, and a familiar butterfly is there to congratulate them on their success. And so that phase of Mystic's journey comes to a close. Mystic has found themselves now in a magical land known as Lumivaria. They find themselves first exploring the realm of fire. And so in the Ace of Fire, Mystic is wandering the halls of this castle that exists in the realm of fire and stumbles on this painting of a dragon casting this sort of protective magic in front of themselves, warding off against these knights down here that are attacking. And Mystic's inspired and is like, hey, what if I could do that kind of magic? In the Two of Fire, Mystic takes that inspiration and puts plans into place, right? Considers what's possible, looks out at the dragons that are flying around the realm, looks at a map of the realm, and nearby we have a little friend. A Page of Fire here is there, also ready to maybe accompany Mystic on a little journey to learn more about protective magic. In the Three of Fire, the Page and Mystic take off together, both of them carrying satchels, as the Queen and King of Fire look on and dragons fly in the distance. 3 torches light their way along the path as they embark on their new journey. In the Four of Fire, they pause to celebrate some small successes. In the background, the Page of Fire is using some protective magic as she pokes her horn into an anthill and is hoping to be safe from that. In the background, we can see a little gray wolf and a dragon flying in the sky. Well, the wolf is on the ground, the dragon is flying. In the foreground, we see Mystic here casting a really well-formed protective bubble around a sweet little lizard. 4 torches light their little picnic here in the desert. In the Five of Fire, Mystic is given an opportunity to test their protective magic skills. Here, against the flame of a dragon in a competition that the Knight of Fire is presiding over here next to the prize, a really sweet ruby necklace. And in the Six of Fire, Mystic is crowned the winner of the competition and is wearing their prize, the ruby necklace, and is crowned in laurel leaves as dragons overhead shoot off fireworks from their mouths, their own other type of magic that they have. In the Seven of Fire, we see Mystic really finally having a real-world application for this protective magic as they encounter some of these bad guys. We're going to call them Dark Knights, the Dark Knights that attack. And these Dark Knights are obviously after this little dragon egg, and as the dragon hatches behind Mystic, they finally have the courage to form a very large protective sphere, partly because they're doing it on somebody else's behalf, somebody more vulnerable than them. And so the magic is easier and bigger, and they have no problem standing their ground in this place. In the Eight of Fire, Mystic and the dragons go to warn the castle inhabitants of the approaching Dark Knight army that they just encountered, and they're there to warn. In the distance, we can see the Knight of Fire is rushing out all by himself to meet the approaching army, which is probably not the smartest move, but he's definitely going to try. In the Nine of Fire, Mystic is holding a shield that is kind of starting to crumble and crack at the seams as the Queen of Fire ushers some baby dragons into the safety of the castle walls. You can tell that there's arrows coming at this, so the knights are attacking, and Mystic is using their newfound magic to try to protect the castle and their newfound friends. In the 10, we see Mystic struggling to hold their shield, and the shield is starting to sort of fall apart. And as it does, we see the King of Fire is stepping in to add his magic to Mystic's, creating a stronger shield because he's there to help Mystic carry the burden. And in the background, we see that some dragons have got the knights on the run. And that concludes the fire suits Ace through 10, and now we meet the court cards up close. So we meet the Page of Fire, and here we see the consequences of their actions. They had gone into that fire anthill back in the Four of Fire, and we can see the ants are crawling all over their horn, and the little page looks quite worried. Here we get another perspective as the Knight of Fire is approaching that army, and Mystic and the dragons that were coming to warn the castle and help are still quite a ways away in the background there. So this is a different perspective on what happened just a couple moments after the Eight of Fire. And in the Queen of Fire, we see that the Queen was in the stands watching the competition of Mystic and the dragon and just sort of presiding over it. I love the sunflowers in her hair. And then here we get another perspective on the king. He's actually in the process of giving a very rousing speech and supporting the dragons that are about to go into battle. The same dragons that will have the knights, the Dark Knights on the run in the background of the 10 of Fire. We also have a little salamander companion here for our King of Fire. That brings us to the water suit. In the water suit, Mystic approaches the realm of water and sees a familiar face. It is indeed the Knight of Water, the same unicorn that Mystic met back when Mystic was in the mundane world and had stumbled on another unicorn in the Sun card. So it's a really sweet reunion. They recognize each other, and they are having a real moment of connection here. In the Two of Water, they rush to embrace one another, and it's really cute because, of course, their heads form a heart. And in the background, we see 2 little sea nymphs who are watching very closely. In the Three of Water, we see 3 different types of displays being put into the air. One from the little Page of Water, one from the sea nymph, and one from Mystic. Each does something a little different. There's some little creatures around as well. In the Four of Water, Mystic is so busy watching the nymphs play here that Mystic entirely misses that the King of Water is actually in the water. Mystic hadn't really realized that the water unicorns live in the sea and have an actual water form. And here the King is sort of trying to get Mystic's attention with a big splash, but Mystic is having none of it. It's a little bit of being in a bubble and not wanting to see what is around you. But of course, that truth comes crashing down in the Five of Water as Mystic finally spotted the Knight of Water and the Page of Water swimming away in their water forms in the distance. The Queen of Water thankfully spotted Mystic really just having this awful realization, and she comes swimming over to give Mystic a big hug. We have a little wolf that looks familiar here in the foreground. In the Six of Water, Mystic, who was really sad in the Five of Water, because of course in the Five, Mystic realizes they can't, of course, live in the realm of water with the Knight of Water. So instead, Mystic, grieves the fact that they can't have the life that maybe Mystic had envisioned. But here in the Six of Water, Mystic reminisces about what it was like to play and be free and maybe not have any of the complications. So a little bit of looking backwards, getting lost in the past a bit here in the Six of Water. In the Seven of Water, Mystic walks to the cliff edge, and here all of these different nymphs are presenting different possibilities, options that Mystic could perhaps chase after for their future. And there's this unsure energy to this card as Mystic tries to figure out what the right path forward might be, but none of these quite feel grounded in reality. They still have an element of fantasy to them. And so in the Eight of Water, Mystic decides to leave the water realm and leave their new friends behind. And it's bittersweet, but at the same time, there's an empowered energy to this card that does sort of harken back to the Tower and the way that Mystic, held their head up high as they walked away from difficulty. Here, Mystics recognize that no matter how much the unicorn cares about the water unicorns and the sea nymphs, that this is not obviously meant to be Mystic's home forever. And of course, the Nine of Water. Mystic finds this beautiful lilac tree by the side of the river, and there's other lilac trees nearby, and it's just the most beautiful, calm place. And as Mystic lays under the tree, there's this recognition that finally, maybe Mystic can find contentedness, happiness, fulfillment without anybody else, just on their own. In the Ten of Water, Mystic finally has settled. They've found a home, and here they've also found family. We have foxes and bunnies and a sweet little hedgehog and a bear in the background, and it's all just a little too perfect, but it's pretty great. It's pretty great, and Mystic is happy here. And then we get to meet the court card, so that was the Ace through 10 of the water suit. Here we get a different perspective on the Page of Water. It's from the Two of Water, where Mystic and the Knight of Water were embracing. This is after that initial moment, and they're actually full on in embrace now. And the Page of Water just leaps for joy to see others in love. This little page is such a dreamer. And then we have the Knight of Water. This is another perspective just before the Ace of Water. So the Knight has just come out of the sea and is transforming from his water form to his land form. Mystic and the Knight haven't, well, he's seen Mystic, but Mystic hasn't seen him yet. And so this is how we kind of realize that Mystic never quite figured out until much later in the suit that this Knight actually lives in the sea, because of course by the time Mystic sees him, he's fully on land and fully in his land form. But he's so beautiful. Look at his tail. And then the Queen of Water, this is a perspective just before the Five of Water. So Mystic has just spotted the Knight and the Page swimming away, and the Queen sees this and sees the grief on Mystic's face and is going to swim over there and comfort Mystic. So we see the Queen of Water. The King of Water watches really proudly as Mystic walks away. This is just after the Eight of Water, and everybody else has left. They'd all waved goodbye to Mystic, but as Mystic headed out into the trees, he just kind of stayed. He kind of lingered and kept an eye on her just to make sure she was going to be safe. There's like this nurturing, protective energy that he brings. That brings us to the Suit of Air. Here, Mystic stumbles upon a nest that Mystic has knocked out of the tree. This little egg has rolled out, and now it's like an uh-oh. There's like this truth, this reveal, this information that Mystic didn't have before, but now has. There's a feather nearby, maybe a hint as to what's going on with the egg. In the background, the Page of Air is sort of just peeking in, sort of spying a little bit, keeping an eye on Mystic, being curious. In the Two of Air, Mystic has really just come back and is staring at this egg, trying to figure out what the heck to do. Off to one side, we see a castle, and we see some little sylphs, little air spirits here watching Mystic. And over here, we see Mystic's wolf friend and the path that leads back to the Lilac Grove. And Mystic has to decide, you know, do they go right back to this happiness that they only recently found in their home? Or do they take this egg and try to find its family and go towards the castle where perhaps some winged inhabitants might live? Mystic doesn't know what to do, but knows that they have to make a decision, and neither decision feels exactly quite right. But by the Three of Air, Mystic has decided that it is important that Mystic leave the Lilac Grove, the safety, and even though their little family, their little forest friends are really sad to see Mystic go, not knowing when Mystic will be back, and Mystic is sad because Mystic doesn't know when they're going to be back, they also know that it's the right thing to do. And so Mystic heads out and is learning this process of sort of taking accountability and responsibility for, you know, what they need to take responsibility for. But it's difficult. In the Four of Air, Mystic steps, sort of curls up inside of a little cave away from this windstorm that is acting up. But the little air sylphs are just playing in the wind. They don't mind at all. But Mystic needs to keep the little egg safe, so Mystic also plays it safe. In the Five of Air, while Mystic was off trying to find the egg's sort of family, these knights, the same knights that had attacked in the realm of fire, have made their way into the realm of air and are attacking the Lilac Grove. And this knight in the foreground is holding Mystic's precious necklace, the necklace that Mystic felt safe enough to hang up on a tree branch in the Ten of Water. Here, the Knight of Air wields it as his prize. But we see that there's other knights circling in the background with their swords, and the forest animals are hiding and fearful, except for the wolf, who is baring her teeth. In the sky here, we see the Knight of Air, who has just spotted this goings-on here on the ground. In the Six of Air, the wolf and the Knight of Air are both on the ground, totally outnumbered and circled by these dark knights, and it doesn't look like a good scene at all. But the Queen and King have at least come in and rescued the fox family and the little bunny family. Presumably, the bear has lumbered off somewhere safe, and the smaller animals have been well hidden, but these creatures were in danger and needed to be taken away to safety. So here in the Six of Air, we see that sort of lifting up and away and the shepherding of these creatures to a safer location. In the Seven of Air, Mystic continues their journey with the egg in their satchel. They've stumbled into some, like a little bunch of fallen acorns, and Mystic's hungry, but isn't paying attention, and behind them, one of the Dark Knights is getting ready to pull a trap and capture Mystic. In the Eight of Air, Mystic has been captured. But what's interesting about this card, there's so many things I have to say. Check out previous Road So Fars, but in this card, Mystic is blindfolded, but they're being held by the most delicate chain that is attached to the most delicate tree. And they could easily just stand up, shake all that off, and like walk out of this area. And actually, just outside the Circle of Swords, the little creature here is hatching from its egg, and it's actually a little baby air spirit, a little sylph. If Mystic could just see how easily this little sylph is freeing itself, perhaps Mystic could realize that they too could free themselves. Mystic does get free, and we'll learn how in a few cards. But for now, Mystic gets free, and we can see the broken chain here, and we see the little baby sylph curled up in the little satchel here as 9 bats sort of flap about overhead, keeping Mystic awake and worried. All Mystic wants to do is get home again to safety and to bring the little sylph back home, probably where its parents have been all along. In the Ten of Air, Mystic does arrive home, but is devastated by the losses that they find there. And they find that their wolf friend, I'm going to fumble the card. They find that their wolf friend has been wounded, and so Mystic uses some golden light, some healing magic to heal their friend. But it's not all horrible. As devastating as this scene looks, the necklace is crashed and crumbled. What am I saying? Crashed? It's been crumbled. It's been stomped on the ground. So there's loss here, and the lilac trees have just been devastated. But if we look in the foreground, the sylph parents are embracing their lost young that Mystic has been keeping safe and has brought home to them. And in the background, we see the Queen and the King of Air flying in with the rest of Mystic's small, vulnerable family members on their backs. So they're bringing them back now. And the sun is rising, and there's hope in this card, as difficult as it is. So that brings us to the court cards. In the Page of Air, we see the little page that had been watching Mystic when Mystic first found the egg. And the little page sees some evidence here of some footprints around the grove. And this is how the page is able to go tell the Knight, Queen, and King that something's up in this area. We even see a little fox in the background. In the Knight of Air, we see the knight just after he spotted the shenanigans happening with the knights in the Lilac Grove, and he's just spotted them. We saw that in the Five of Air, and now he's diving down because the Knight of Air cannot stand injustice, and he's going to go protect the grove if he can. In the Queen of Air, we see that the Queen has found Mystic all bound up in the Eight of Air, and has actually come and taken her horn and ripped off Mystic's blindfold so that Mystic can really see the truth of this situation. The Queen of Air is always going to help us see things as they really are, not as we think they are or wish them to be. And then we have the King of Air, the master strategist, as he looks at the Dark Knights in the distance, knowing that he has set the perfect trap for them, and they will be driven from his lands, and all will be safe again. And that brings us to our last suit. So I'm going to try to spend a little bit more time here. In the Ace of Earth, Mystic has been wandering. The Lilac Grove has been slowly recovering. And finally there's safety and there's an opportunity for Mystic to do some exploring. And as Mystic comes upon these snowy hills, it's just the beginning of winter and it started to snow. Mystic sees in this cave just some shining, glittering stones. And one in particular catches Mystic's eye because, of course, it is a glowing little ruby. There's an opportunity here, Mystic knows, to perhaps somehow replace what was lost. There's this idea that with the ruby necklace that Mystic had treasured that they'd won back in the Six of Fire, there's this idea that that was the necklace that the knights destroyed. And so maybe there's an opportunity here to get something back or to start something new, but to sort of honor that lost gift. So Mystic wanders into this little cave to explore this opportunity. And once in there, Mystic finds a really frightening scene here for a moment. Just as Mystic steps into this cave and sees this scene unfold, there's like this need to make a decision, to figure out who to help and how to help them. Over here we have the young Page of Earth who is walking across this wooden bridge, carrying heavy stones in the baskets that she has on her back. But the wood is breaking beneath her weight. It's like it was just not quite sturdy enough for her. And so she's possibly going to fall. Up here on the ledge, we have a little gnome, and the gnome has been mining, and in the process of mining has dropped his pickaxe, and if he reaches for it, if he turns and tries to grab it, he will also fall. And so Mystic's horn lights up with magic, and in that moment, Mystic needs to decide who to help first, what to prioritize. And it's a stressful moment because you can't do everything all at once. You have to figure out how to sort of juggle. And so Mystic's sort of in that moment when we see them in this card. In the Three of Earth, that situation has been settled. Mystic was able to help both of the creatures and now assists the Knight of Earth and another gnome, and they have this sort of like bucket brigade system of mining going on. So the gnome is pulling the stones from the earth and putting them in this little basket, and then Mystic is using their magic to take the baskets over to the Knight of Earth who has the cart behind him. And so the baskets get moved into the cart. And it's this really great system. And they all work together. They all have their job to do. So there's this collaborative energy that we have and love for the Three of Earth. There's something about the Four of Earth that I just really, really especially love. I think it's the tones. I love when we have these beautiful indoor spaces with the candlelight. But Mystic has acquired all of these crystals. And there's this tension around that acquisition because, of course, something was taken from Mystic prior. Mystic went through that whole experience in the air suit, encountered people that maybe weren't so good, some bad guys, was taken advantage of, their home was destroyed, their precious, precious ruby necklace was shattered. And now that Mystic has been mining and working with the people of the earthly realm, of the earth realm, they've acquired crystals, but they're just scared. They're overprotective of them, and so they're guarding them. So they're guarding these four baskets of crystals, making sure they don't go anywhere, and they've got extra locks on their door, 4 of them to be precise. So there's this like gripping, grasping energy to this, and it's a little bit fearful for Mystic. In the Five of Earth, Mystic is sort of really struggling. Usually what would happen is that the unicorns, the earth unicorns and Mystic and the gnomes would all go to the mines and they would do their work for the day. And then when they came back, they would have a meal together. And here in the background, we can see that the Queen of Earth is serving that wonderful meal. But what's happened is that Mystic had gotten hurt. And because Mystic couldn't work today, couldn't work in the mines, they didn't feel like they were welcome to enjoy the meal with all of the gnomes and earth unicorns that had been working. And so Mystic stays outside in the cold despite the open door and the warm welcome. There's this idea that there's a place for them there, but they don't feel worthy because they don't feel like they contributed enough or did enough. And so there's a real struggle here with worthiness being attached to what we can accomplish and productivity and all of that kind of thing. And but this is all happening within Mystic. Everybody else would be perfectly fine. There's 5 little red crystals above the door there. I just find this scene really speaks to the energy of the 5 of Earth a lot. Here in the 6 of Earth, Mystic has finally learned, maybe because they couldn't work for a little while and they had to rely on the generosity of others for a bit to get back on their feet, Mystic has sort of loosened their grip on the crystals that they've collected. And that's a good thing, because here, after a day of mining, Mystic has an extra basket of these beautiful little amethysts, and these young gnomes, who are still too young to go help in the mines, are really excited. And so Mystic distributes a few, sort of gives a few amethysts to each gnome, and here is putting the 3rd one in this little gnome's hand right here. Really cute scene. In the 7 of Earth, Mystic now takes some of the crystals, the best ones. They picked them out very, very carefully. The best crystals they've mined while they've been working here in the realm of Earth, and brings them all to the workshop, where the gnome will tumble them with sand and a little bit of grit, and brings them to this little gnome, who puts them in this barrel with some sand and other abrasives and tumbles them by running across the barrel on the top. And this little creature is going to make sure that these crystals come out and bring out their beauty and their shine. But at this point, Mystic can't do anything. Like, they've done all the work they can do. They've selected the best crystals they can. And so 3 of them are almost done tumbling here, and you can see their shine is starting to come through. But there's 4 more to go. So there's an element here of just needing to be in the process right now, and Mystic having to kind of wait and see how they're all going to turn out, and hoping that they picked the right ones. In the 8 of Earth, Mystic moves on to the next stage in their project, and behind them there are 7 crystals that have been carefully carved into pendants hanging on the wall. 1 of each color, very unique and special. As Mystic works on the 8th crystal, the King of Earth behind them oversees the work that Mystic is doing, although it's plain to see that Mystic has definitely mastered this craft. In the 9 of Earth, we finally understand what Mystic's been doing all this time, mining the crystals, and not only replacing their own necklace, which came last, but picking out all these other pendants, all these other necklaces, and they're all now hanging in the lilac grove, which has recovered from all of the earlier damage. And finally, we see in the 10 of Earth, as Mystic's family each wears a special pendant made by Mystic. This is what it feels like to have earned a place and to sort of feel safe and secure, to have the home, not to take the home for granted, not to take family for granted, but to understand that this life, this joy was something that was worked for and guarded and protected. And here Mystic gets to understand that at a deeper level. And overhead, Mystic's star shines in the sky, along with 9 other stars that form the Monoceros constellation, the unicorn constellation. A familiar butterfly pops in as well. And that, my friends, is the end of Mystic's story. But let's meet the court cards of the earthly suit. So we have the Page of Earth, who we first saw in the 2 of Earth, who was about to fall. This is prior to that, when the little unicorn was still learning how to mine in the caves and doing all of their due diligence and preparing and doing everything they could. And it's interesting here because even though they did everything they could to prepare, they still, in the 2 of Earth, experienced something they couldn't have foreseen, right? They couldn't have prepared enough to not have the wood break beneath their feet. And I think that's a reminder sometimes that the diligence is good, being prepared is good, being a good little Boy Scout is good. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, there's still things that can go wrong that are outside of your control. There's still only so much preparing that we can do. But this is such a great scene. And I love the little page. They're so cute. I love the Earth unicorns so much. They're my favorite. Here we have the Knight of Earth, and he is very carefully carrying or pulling a cart of crystals, but the load is heavy and the ground is uneven, and he knows if he doesn't watch his step or step very carefully that he could tip his cargo and it could go spilling out everywhere. And so he moves slowly and makes sure that each step is sure before he places the next one. Here we get another perspective on what was happening from the Queen's perspective as Mystic in the 5 of Earth walked by feeling like they weren't invited. Here the Queen is preparing the stew, and we see with her magic as she puts vegetables and roots and goodies into the pot. She's cooking away, and it's a very, very cozy scene, and she looks so fluffy. And then we have the King of Earth overseeing all of the creations that are being made in the gem necklace workshop. And we understand finally, I think, by this point in the story that this is, of course, where the ruby necklace would have come from that Mystic originally won. And we get to see them all in their glory here. But he's so cute. I love his little beard. All the kings have little beards, and I think it's great. I can't believe we're at this place. I really can't. This feels very surreal. In fact, the cloth that you're looking at that's on the table is here because I was filming some footage for my Kickstarter video, and it's just wild to think that this is where we're at. I have been sharing this journey with you for a very long time. Thank you for coming with me for every step of it, because I know that some of you have been here the whole way through. And if you're just finding me, welcome. And I hope that this has been enlightening. I hope it helps you bond with this deck if you do decide to bring a copy of it home for yourself or back the Kickstarter. This deck means a lot to me. It's more than just a story and a unicorn deck, although it's both of those. It's also like a little piece of my heart and soul and everything that I'm passionate about. It's all about self-worth and finding your place and getting to know your own potential and learning how to take up space in the world. And all of that is an important theme that runs through the entire deck. So if you want to hear more of my babblings, please do check out the entire playlist. I'll have it linked below. And of course, if you're called to this deck, then please go visit the Kickstarter link. Click notify to be notified on launch, or if you're watching this later and the Kickstarter is live, consider backing it if you believe in it. And thank you so, so much for everything. All right, y'all, that's it for now. I can't believe we're at the end of all these updates. Thank you so, so much for everything. And may your magic always shine from the inside out. Bye.